Good morning, y'all. Today is August 5th, 2025. Welcome back to my channel, Fretboard Refugee. My name is Bill. This is going to be my weekly roundup, even though it's a day late. I've been out of town. 2 weeks ago today, my mother passed away unexpectedly. So I was on a plane by Wednesday for Billings, Montana, where my folks live. I was able to spend a little more than a week with my father and spend some quality time with my brother and his family. I did not bring a guitar with me, although more on that later. So that's where I've been. Plan for the week, I haven't done any of my shows. I'm still gonna try to get an Alternate Tuning Tuesday recorded later today. We're gonna talk about open G tuning. We might actually do that tomorrow. I still owe you guys a Theory Thursday. I still have not actually recorded a successful Theory Thursday, so we'll be doing the key of D later this week. Those things might be staggered today, even though Theory Friday just doesn't alliterate as well. We'll just have to live with that. So, songs of the week. I've still been working on my fingerstyle piece, the Slow as Lightning. I've been working on a Pearl Jam tune called Footsteps, which is kind of a riff-driven verse and chord-driven chorus. I've always liked it. Let me try to play it here, even though I have not practiced it in a few days. So it's kind of a... And that riff sort of repeats. And then when you get to the chorus, there's this really cool... kind of going between a C9, and whatever version of the D chord that is. It's got a cool little discordant bluesy thing to it, which I really enjoy. I'm going to work that up to the point that I can perform it probably within a couple of weeks here. The other thing I've been working on, just over 3 months ago when I was in Israel on a tour, I kind of started writing a song, which is not something I really know how to do or I'm equipped to do, but nevertheless, I gave it a shot. Didn't get very far. With all the emotion I've been dealing with over the last week, that kind of, I guess, broke free. So I found myself writing lyrics and the better part of a chord progression. So I'll keep you updated on that. That might be ready for performance soon, but that's kind of exciting for me. All right, so the theme of the week, the thing I've been working on and finding ways to incorporate into different songs is bass notes. Bass notes meaning, first of all, the thick strings, but in a theory context, the bass notes of a chord. So if I'm gonna play like an A minor chord, the bass note is this, the low A string. So we can do things like alternate bass notes where kind of gives that boom chaka effect. There's also times and places in music where you might want to suggest a chord without actually playing it. And in those cases, it can be valuable to hit that bass note rather than the whole chord, especially if you just gotta, like, let's say, this is something that I'm using in that song I'm writing. So that A minor, I want the A minor to sort of be the center of things, but the chord progression goes E minor, G major, E minor. So rather than doing every time, you can sort of just hit open E string, suggests the E, 3rd fret of the E string, suggests the G, then hit the A, the bass note of the chord. That has some advantages. First of all, it's faster. Second of all, it's clearer. Third of all, by just hitting the 1 note of the chord and not even messing with the 3, you've created something that's neither major or minor. So I could just as easily go from that A note and hit an A7, A minor 7. You could hit A major, you could hit any number of A variants just by hitting that A note. And if you want to skip that A chord, it leaves some ambiguity. It could have gone either way. Like we could do so that gives you the whole spectrum of major, minor, E, all with the same bass note, and it sounds good with all of them. If you're using a song that transitions between a couple different E's, like there's a lot of songs where you use an E and an E7 or an E minor and an E7 just to create some contrast. If you're in a hurry and you want to suggest that E, just hit that open E string and it doesn't matter. Or not so much that it doesn't matter, but it creates a tension that is resolved by the listener or resolved by a later expression of the same chord. So bass notes, that's going to be a theme that I come back to when we talk about theory, because when you're using an open tuning, knowing what the bass note is tells you what the chord is. So knowing where all your potential bass notes are, especially on the 6th and 5th strings, is very valuable, because you might not want to memorize every possible chord shape, but if I know that this spot on the A string right here is B, and I know that's my minor chord shape right there, like that's my A minor, well, there's my B minor chord, there's my B flat minor chord, there's my A minor chord, because the open A string is the bass note. Just memorizing those 2 strings and the bass notes of pretty much the entire family of power chords and bar chords that we actually practically use, that's some great information to have accessible in your head. Because if I know, for instance, that this is going to be my G, well, I don't have to count that much to get to a higher voicing of a G minor. This is a good thing to know, this is a good thing to memorize, and it's a great tool in songwriting and performing. Let's say you wanted to sketch out a 12-bar blues. Let's say you're a teacher and somebody's playing it and you don't quite want to play the chords for them. You want to give them some space to perform, but 12-bar blues in E. What is our 1st, 4th, and 5th? Well, E. So you just hit quarter notes in E. That's your E bar. Our 4th is A. Back to E. We know our 5th is B. Go an octave up for that B either. You can hit that B here. So bass notes, that is our concept for the week. And we'll talk a little about that when we talk about alternate tuning and when we talk about theory on Thursday and or Friday this particular week. All right, so the educational concept of the week, and I'm going to kind of roll in the featured instrument to that because there's a story here. When I got to my parents' place in Montana, I was very conscious of the fact that I didn't bring a guitar. I didn't really have cash to pay to transport a guitar at the time. This was very poor timing in my life. And I told myself, well, the last thing I'm going to want to do is play music. But if I'm honest with myself, this has become a major part of the way that I deal with challenging emotions, by playing, by articulating my feelings with music when I can't necessarily articulate them in words. And it also helps me articulate them in words. So I was missing this as a therapeutic outlet during a really rough time in my life. Well, when I arrived at my parents' apartment, I saw this guitar standing in the corner. And I didn't know that either of my parents played guitar at all. I mean, my mom played piano and my dad played a little piano, but this was a surprise to see this there. And this, I've removed the pick guard, but you can see the outline here. And what does that tell you? Well, my dad is left-handed, so as soon as I realized it was a left-handed guitar, I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't help me. I can't play that. Which brings us to our concept. Our concept is find something you can practice. Because playing the songs that you know on the instrument you know is not the only way to improve your musical skills. I found myself with this left-handed guitar, so an upside-down fretboard. What's more, it had not been played in a while and it was missing the G string. So a 5-string upside-down guitar. Well, what can I do with that? I could try to learn to play left-handed, which might be a valuable exercise, but that's not what I did. What I ended up doing is playing the guitar right-handed, so upside down, and thanks to my alternate tuning practice, what I did is I dropped the low E string, which at the time was here, to D. So what does that give me? Well, it gives me 3 strings here that form a power chord. So I have a 3-string power chord that I can just bar and move up and down the fretboard, which enabled me to play anything I wanted with major chords. So I could sort of fake a 12-bar blues. And I had a B string and an E string here, a high B and E string, that I could use as accents for those, that I could use as kind of treble notes to go with them, although put my fingerstyle stuff upside down. It was a useful exercise to figure out, okay, how do I voice a minor chord with this? And it wasn't as emotionally beneficial as having one of my guitars that was set up the way I play, but it enabled me to practice music. It enabled me to express my emotions, and turns out that this particular guitar, I'm gonna roll in featured instrument here. This is an Art and Lutherie solid top cedar dreadnought, which has beautiful tone. My father hadn't played it in years and was never gonna play it. And it was kind of a beautiful but sad memory for him that it would sit in the corner, and my mother would tease him about this every week, that she would walk by and sort of run her fingers across the strings and say, there, it's been played for the week. So he told me, go ahead, take it, flip the strings around, and set it up as a right-handed guitar. So that's what I did. I went to a local music shop, Music Villa, actually, which I know Tony of Tony's Acoustic Challenge used to work at the Bozeman location. This was the Billings location. Very beautiful shop, very beautiful space. I didn't spend much time looking around there because, you know, I didn't have money to drop on a guitar and I had more pressing concerns, but I bought a cheap pack of strings. I talked to the luthier on duty there, and he sold me this this bone nut that he had taken off another guitar he was working on. He actually sold me a few different bone nuts in different sizes and shapes, because I knew if I was reversing the handedness of the guitar that the slotted nut would be an issue, because obviously on a left-handed guitar, these slots are way thicker, these slots are way thinner, so I'd have strings popping out. But this used beat up one happened to fit perfectly. He sold me another nicer, newer one, but that's in my kit for a rainy day, or another guitar. So reverse the strings. I kind of flipped around the compensated saddle, attached the new nut, and tuned her up, and she plays great in a right-handed configuration. Oh, also pried off the pick guard, so I'm just gonna polish that out at some point. I don't really need a pick guard. So even though this is a dreadnought, it's so, it's 11/16 nut spacing, pretty standard, but it feels very good for fingerstyle. I don't know why that is, but I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. It's gonna be a very special guitar to me because it reminds me of that, of my parents and of their dynamic, and it was there for me when I didn't have a guitar of my own, and now it is a guitar of my own. So this Art and Lutherie Cedar Dreadnought is very special to me. Beautiful instrument, beautiful tone. I've really enjoyed playing it. I was worried that if I didn't actually change the saddle to a right-handed one, that I'd have intonation issues down here at like the 12th fret. B string goes a little wonky after 12 frets or so, but the rest of them are right in tune. So knock on solid cedar. Beautiful guitar, plays beautifully, and that's the principle, is find a way to practice. It might be that you don't have an instrument at all, and the way you find to practice is to practice your sight reading, if that's a thing you do. Practice ear training. Listen to a song, see if you can figure out what the intervals are between chords, see if you can figure out the chord progression. Then look it up on a tab site or something and see how close you got. Maybe you're in a house that doesn't have a guitar, you're staying with friends, but maybe they have a piano. Well, your major scales are still gonna work, your minor scales are still gonna work, and having those, see, the guitar is a very chromatic instrument because every half step is just a half step. You don't know, unless you actually know your fretboard, you don't know what's a natural, what's a sharp, what's a flat. On the piano, that is painfully obvious. They are literally segregated, black and white. So it's readily apparent looking at a piano keyboard why the key of C is special, why the C major scale is special, because you can do your whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step without ever hitting an accidental, without ever hitting a sharp or a flat. That can give you insight into the very structure of Western music. Maybe you don't have a guitar or a piano. Maybe you have, maybe they have a ukulele sitting in their house. It's, I read a statistic somewhere that it's 11% of all Americans play some kind of instrument. Now, if you assume that that statistic is accurate, I don't even know what the source for that is. It was something I pulled up on Google the other day. If you assume you have 2 or 3 people to a household, that gives you basically a 1 in 3 chance that there's going to be some kind of instrument in that household, be it a piano, a synthesizer, keyboard. Maybe you don't have an instrument. Maybe you work on your timing, your rhythm. Maybe you just find something, tap out a tempo on. Maybe you have a metronome on your phone and you get into maybe both hands on the 2 and the 4 beat, or the 1 and 3 beat, or the 2 and the 4 beat. There's any number of things you can do to improve your timing. You can work on your singing. If music is important to you, and I know it's become very important to me, there are many ways to practice. And if that means playing guitar upside down, that's, and I didn't even do it to keep up my practice. I mean, that's important too, but I did it to stay sane. I did it to process my difficult emotions, and it wasn't valuable for that purpose. But I am grateful that I was able to continue my practice, and yeah, it was a good deal. So what else do we have to do? The educational focus, find a way to practice. Featured gear. Okay, so featured gear. I have this little Ziploc bag that I carry everywhere, that I carried ever since the trip to Israel, because I knew I wasn't bringing a guitar and I was probably going to get one. That bag has an assortment of picks. It has a capo. It had a, this particular, when I'm on the road, this particular metronome. And I didn't actually bring a tuner because I can get to that on my phone. Although in the future, I'll probably bring a cheap tuner because a clip-on tuner is just so useful. So that's my portable guitar playing kit. But the challenge in Billings was I had to go buy strings. I didn't have an extra set of strings, which they don't take up much space. I'm gonna add a set of strings going forward to my kit. And I'm gonna add a set of wire cutters. Maybe even one of those string winder wire cutter combos, because string winding I can live without, but living without a wire cutter was hard. I wasn't able to actually trim these till I got home. I tried to trim them with scissors. And strangely, you can get through the big ones because they're thick enough that the scissors won't slip, especially if you kind of grip them around the outside. But when you get to the thin ones, that wire is hard enough that it'll just split the blades and go in between. So I was really not able to trim the strings that looked like chaos down here, strings sticking off everywhere. Cheap pair of wire cutters, you can get them for like $2 at Harbor Freight, or you can get nice ones at Guitar Center, but they'll do the same job. Cheap wire cutters, one issue with wire cutters, they might not let you fly with them. So it might be something that goes in your checked baggage if you're gonna fly. But there's no reason that, for instance, if you carry your guitar in a hard case, you can fit all that stuff right in that little pocket that goes under the neck. So have a kit with you, have a capo, have the ability to tune, have the ability to count time accurately and objectively, and have the ability to change strings. It wouldn't hurt to be able to do some other kind of basic cleaning and maintenance stuff, like maybe throw a microfiber cloth in there, maybe throw a number 2 pencil in there so when you change your strings, you can lubricate your nut. I'm a big fan of that. You know, just a little bit of pencil rubbed around where the string goes. Helps your tuning stability, helps your string life, supposedly. I haven't objectively tested that, but I don't see why not. And it's satisfying to do that as a ritual. I can't really think of what else would need to go in that kit. Feel free to drop a suggestion in the comments if you have one. A lot of the music that I play, the music that I practice, I can access tabs on the internet, or I have tabs saved on my phone. There are a few things that I have in books that I would have liked to have had with me, but I mean, woulda, shoulda, coulda. Another thing that I think you should always have with you, and this might be something we go into another week because it's also an educational principle, have a journal. I don't actually track my practice. There was a time when I was very rigorous about that. Like I spent 10 minutes on X. I played this scale. I worked on this song. It was a 7 out of 10. I worked on this scale at this particular tempo, like 72 beats per minute. I was smooth. 84 beats per minute, it fell apart. That kind of thing. There's times in my life that I track that rigorously. There's times I don't track that at all. I go through phases. I think kind of free running is very productive on that, but I think especially when there's something in particular you want to improve at, and if it's not your favorite thing to practice, it's great to hold yourself accountable. But whether you're tracking practice or not, it's great to be able to jot down ideas, especially if you're somebody who likes to write songs, likes to write lyrics. I have one journal for everything. It's kind of, you know, if I have like a meeting, a church meeting, which I have later today, I'll bring that journal. If I'm, you know, sitting at a coffee shop waiting for somebody, I'll be writing in that journal. If I have an idea for a song lyric, I'll write it in that journal. If one of my books that I'm reading, something strikes me, I'll write it in that journal. But having somewhere to write ideas down, I think is huge. One more thing I like to do every week, and that's a shout out to somebody whose content I have appreciated. There is a website called Happy Bluesman, and this is also a subscription learning site. I am not a member of it. I don't intend to be because I'm getting pretty good content from other areas, but their free content is really cool. It's very focused on the, it's very focused on kind of mainstream, mostly electric blues. There's articles about different kinds of guitars, different kinds of effects, tone, amps, that sort of thing. But there's also great articles on like how a 12-bar blues works, how to use seventh chords, some theory stuff that'll come in handy that's kind of indispensable. I think their explanations are first rate. There's also like articles about specific artists, like how to sound like so-and-so. He used these kind of chords, he used this kind of equipment. That stuff is good to have, but the theory content is priceless. So I would highly recommend checking out Happy Bluesman. All right, that is it for the weekly roundup. Either today or tomorrow, I will record and release an alternate tuning Tuesday on Open G. Have a wonderful day. Please like and share and tell your friends. Thank you.